Welcome back to BNN News. The 23rd annual South End Garden Tour will take place Saturday, June 18th. Presented by the trustees of reservations, the tour covers everything from rooftops to backyards and community gardens. To tell us what's planned is our guest, the tour's engagement manager, Peter Bowne. Thank you very much for being with us, Peter.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
First of all, when people hear about gardens, they think of, spacious yards and lots of greenery all over the place. And here we are in the South End with all those brownstones squeezed together. What are these gardens like?
It's a complete range of the way everybody in different parts of the neighborhood engages with sort of their natural environment. It's everything from pretty expansive community gardens where individual gardeners have plots to folks' backyards, which may be large or small, and also their front yards. We also feature some civic spaces and public parks, sort of pocket parks, as you were.
I think part of this tour, I imagine you will see examples of gardens that are almost really ingenious about how they maximize that little bit of outdoor space that make that space really desirable.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I lived in the South End for many years, and at my last place I had a rooftop garden up high, and you really get good at using every square inch of the dirt.
And of course, you go up on the rooftop, and I guess some people on this tour, they'll be able to take in the view as well.
Yeah, there are views, definitely views from rooftops in the South End, yes.
Of course, there's also a long history of nonprofits being involved in gardens in the South End. This goes back, I guess, to the days of urban renewal, and I guess we'll see some sense of that too in this tour.
Pretty much in the mid-'70s is when the community garden movement started in the South End, yes.
And I guess in those days, I guess part of this is to raise food for people, because
definitely.
There are people who need it. And I still see them out there right now, probably raising their own vegetables.
Absolutely. There's an enormous amount of food production in not only the South End gardens, but in all the community gardens across the city. In a previous life, I was the farmers market manager at the Copley Square Farmers Market, and that is one way that people can have access to fresh, healthy food. Community gardens are a very significant part of the puzzle as well. People grow food not only for themselves, but for their families and also for their neighbors in these community plots.
Now sometimes you get a whole bunch of these plots together. It isn't always totally picturesque, but what I find fascinating is that you've got people from the neighborhoods, different kinds of people, and they've got something in common. They're talking to each other, and you get a real feel of community, I guess.
And that's really been important from day one of the community gardens. These spaces were all sort of abandoned or derelict spaces that the community came together and turned into gardens, filled with rubble. Maybe the buildings had burned down or they had been razed for urban renewal projects that didn't happen. People came together, they cleared the land, they put up fences, they brought in clean soil, and they started planting. It was also a time when people could come together and meet different people from different backgrounds, as it were. The 70s were not the best time in Boston for that kind of sort of...
They were pretty contentious.
Yeah. And you can see I'm stumbling over it to say it properly. But basically, those were tough times in Boston. And community gardens were one of the places where people of all stripes could come together and meet and work on a project together. And that was part of the beauty of it.
This is BNN News. We're talking with Peter Bowne about the South End Garden Tour. Peter, what about some of the other things here? One thing that's different about this tour, and in fact it's different every year because you focus on a certain part of the neighborhood. So tell me about this year's focus.
So this year we're focusing on the Ellis neighborhood, which is roughly the border is Columbus to Tremont and Berkeley Street to West Newton.
And you've also got, in addition to the yards and the rooftops, a school garden too.
Yes, we have a school garden over at the McKinley School that is a collaboration with the Haley House, sort of a very well established and very well known sort of South End and Roxbury nonprofit.
Now, I guess one advantage of just taking one piece of the South End is that this is a very walkable tour.
Very walkable.
And what's that like? It's not just the garden sites themselves, but just walking through the neighborhood.
Right, and it's getting to connect with the neighborhood, getting to get a real sense of the neighborhood on foot. You're not driving through on your way to the office or going to pick up the kids or going off to do an errand. You're spending time and you're doing it at human speed and human scale. You're also going to run into neighbors and other garden tour sort of visitors. And there's going to be a lot of talking and a lot of sort of commonality in this experience.
Because one spectrum with gardens is that you have the necessity of food at one end, and you have, I guess, works of art and designs. I mean, we're going to see some of that too?
Absolutely. So the question to you now is, are we talking about the gardens as works of art or the artists that we're going to have painting in the gardens? So yeah, for the last several years, we've worked with the United South End artists, the folks who put on open studios. So they will be back in the gardens painting during the garden tour. And then at the end of the tour, we're going to have an art exhibit and a sale of their wet works that they've produced during the day.
Well, we should also mention that if people want some more details about the tour, this is going to be what time on June 18th?
Oh, that's right. It's 10 to 4 on Saturday, June 18th, and the start point is at the Boston Center for the Arts Plaza. That's the corner of Tremont Street in Columbus.
And we should mention you've got something on the internet that they can turn to as well?
We definitely have something on the internet. It's the website is thetrustees.org/SEGT for South End Garden Tour.
All right. Thank you very much for being with us.
Great, thank you.
Peter Bowne, and we'll have more news in just a moment.